BART, a public transit system, is withholding surveillance videos of crime in order to avoid stereotypes. In the last 3 months, there have been at least 3 robberies on BART involving groups of teenagers. I think people are genuinely concerned. They are fearful about the stories that have come out about the recent attacks, the assaults, the thefts, said Deborah Allen, who is a member of the BART Board of Directors. On April 22nd, 40 to 60 kids boarded a train at the Coliseum stop and robbed 7 passengers, beating up 2. On June 28th, a group of 4 kids assaulted a passenger and made off with a cell phone at Dublin. And on June 30th, a woman on a train with about a dozen teenagers had her phone snatched by one of them before the group got off at the Coliseum stop. Thankfully, a Good Samaritan was on hand to retrieve the phone. So far, BART has refused to turn over surveillance video for any of these incidents. Allen told us the agency issued an explanation for why it was... Allen told us the agency issued an explanation for why it is being tight-lipped about the thefts. To release these videos would create a high level of racially insensitive commentary toward the district, she was told. And in addition, it would create a racial bias in the riders against minorities on the trains. If we were to regularly feed the news media video of crimes on our system that involve minority suspects, particularly when they are minors, we would certainly face questions as to why we were sensationalizing relatively minor crimes and perpetuating false stereotypes in the process. My view is that the media's real interest in videos of youth phone snatching incidents isn't the desire for transparency, but rather the pursuit of ratings. They know that videos of these events will drive clicks to their websites and viewers to their programs because people are motivated by fear. BART Assistant General Manager Carrie Hamill replied, "This is BART. People are sort of trapped in this train for a while, and they have a right to see what could potentially happen." To which Deborah Allen replied, "What is the priority of BART? Is the safety of the passenger, of all passengers, is that a lesser priority than the race bias issue?" According to BART spokesperson Taylor Huckabee, state law protecting juvenile police records prevents them from showing their surveillance video even though at least one of the people arrested on April 22nd is 19 years old. And even if the faces of juveniles were blurred, Huckabee says watching the videos would be pointless gawking. Well, they do seem to be a little bit divided on the issue within the company. But I personally believe it's a bit bullshit to not release evidence to police officers because of the race of the individual that committed the crime. It is not the job of police nor of public transit to attempt to obscure the truth because the truth might be perceived by some as racist or xenophobic or what have you. You have to wonder how this is going to impact the business itself over the period of the next few years, at least if this news becomes common knowledge, that if you go on BART, you have no chance of finding the person who assaulted you because, well, he was a minority, and we don't want to perpetuate minority stereotypes, would we? People will avoid the place like the plague. If you leave them more open to crimes, more open to assault, and more open to having their shit stolen from them by a group of teenagers, people will find another way to get from point A to point B. I was hesitant earlier about calling this a business because I'm not sure if it's business or owned by the government. However, what I mean still stands. It's utilization, whether or not it's going to be used. That's what I meant by business. But, full disclosure, I don't know if BART's public transit or not. I think it's public transit. But even public transit does require use in order to remain effective. Ideally, everything that the government provides and owns and operates would have optimal security and optimal comfort. Instead, and this is why I'm against most government-ran things, they nickel and dime everything to the point to where it just becomes a shantytown. This is what happens with communism, too. Governments tend to frown upon innovation. They want things to just keep going the way that they are going. Because of this, government offices typically run like shit. That's why businesses almost always are a better option, because the free market drives innovation. So if you have 4 different companies, the one with the best services and the best value to meet those services, and convenience and all those other things that come into play, they will be the most successful. At least if there's no trickery going on in the background, which behind the scenes there's always stuff like that going on. Alright, full disclosure, complete transparency, I just looked up if BART is government ran, and it is a public transport system. It says here on Wikipedia, Bay Area Rapid Transit is a public metro system serving the San Francisco Bay Area in California. So I would imagine it does have some state funding. So let's speculate for a minute. Worst case scenario, people stop using BART because of these crimes. They get worse, and the company stands behind this idea of not releasing evidence, and people hear about it. It becomes the next trending thing on Twitter, and it's everything people talk about for a few days. Well, people will stop using BART, and eventually the government will cut funding, and then will reappropriate the tracks and everything that's used for BART for different government programs. Well, who knows? It probably will not come to that, but only time will tell. We'll have to wait and see if anything is done to make public transportation safer for people who might use it. So, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. Do you think that BART should take it upon themselves to withhold evidence in order to prevent truth from getting out there, in fear that the public can't take truth without incorporating xenophobia? And you have to also consider how covering up crimes because of a person's race might affect people from that race who might commit a crime, their disincentive to commit a crime in the future. It's going to disappear because now there's no reason for them not to commit a crime. If, say, the people at BART are actively preventing evidence of assault and theft from getting into police hands.